What's up, everyone? Welcome to Inside Gaming. I'm Evan Campbell. Joining me today, special guest from Yacht Club Games, Sandy Gordon. What's up, Sandy?
Hey, Evan. Good to meet you.
That was our first intro. I promise I didn't record that like 3 times in a row. I'm messing up every time. Sandy, you're here to talk about your new game, Mina the Hollower. But before we do that, I'd kind of like you to introduce yourself, tell our audience about, your history as a game developer maybe, and your history at Yacht Club Games even.
Sure. So as far as joining Yacht Club, I started there about 5 years ago now. So I was brought on kind of right at the tail end of Spectre of Torment's development. And well, Yacht Club needed at the time some extra help with pixel art for King of Cards and Showdown, which were about to get rolling. And so that was my role joining the company. I was the second artist on those 2 games.
So yeah, when you joined on, this Shovel Knight empire had been rolling for a while, I guess. So I won't delay anymore. I know you got a new game you're excited about. I'm excited about. I think a lot of people are excited about Mina. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that game is? What is Mina the Hollower, essentially?
I mean, as far as like, the story kind of rundown, you play as Mina, obviously the eponymous character. She's a hollower and a visionary inventor. And her spark technology was used to build various spark generators that are stationed around the island on which the game is set. So the generators kind of brought a new prosperity to the main central city on the island. And when the game starts, Mina learns that the generators have been getting sort of systematically destroyed by some foul play. So she's setting out to investigate.
Cool. And yeah, just looking at this trailer, you had an announcement trailer on Kickstarter. There's a longer demo video, I think on G4 and some other places. And yeah, it's like a top-down perspective, right? Action adventure game, I would describe it maybe as. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it is top-down action adventure. Obviously just looking at it, very Game Boy Color inspired. Which is something that, we intentionally set out to do this time around as opposed to the NES inspirations we took for Shovel Knight.
Yeah, and you guys have talked about these inspirations a little bit. I think even like on the Yacht Club website, you've got, Castlevania obviously as an influence. She's got the whip. You've got obviously castles in there, this kind of macabre flavor. You've got Bloodborne as a reference, which I think is, something that I think a lot of game makers are pulling inspiration from. The whole FromSoft kind of era now that we're in has like just impacted every game in some way, shape, or form.
It's so hard for it not to. It's just like they are constantly just innovating on the genre, like both action adventure and action RPG. And I mean, as far as Yacht Club goes, we all love those titles so much. So like everyone else, it's hard not to have them on the brain all the time.
Yeah, I have to ask, are you guys going to shut down for like a month when Elden Ring comes out? Is that...
I will tell you, this is confidential information that I'm making public, but I've actually put in some time off.
All right, here we go.
Starting February 25th.
There we go.
It's locked in for me.
What specifically, I guess I'm curious, what are those Bloodborne inspirations for Mina specifically?
The Bloodborne one specifically for Mina, a lot of it stems mostly from our take on the clearly Victorian inspired, but also like Gothic horror, macabre tone. And in contrast to Shovel Knight, we're going for a bit of a darker feel for Mina. We were inspired very heavily by classic Gothic horror literature. So like the Frankensteins, Draculas, Sleepy Hollow, Edgar Allan Poe stories even.
Much like the original Castlevania, I would say, is like...
Much like Castlevania. So much like the way Castlevania drew from like the Universal monster collection, those classics that I just mentioned.
You've got werewolves and Frankensteins and mummies,
right,
the whole
like
deal.
Medusa heads and stuff.
Medusa heads, yeah.
Things that you would actually find in, classic works of literature. We are kind of doing our own spin on those. So much like with Shovel Knight, right, where we did a spin on our favorite games of old, we're sort of doing the same both on Mina the Hollower, both with gameplay, taking inspiration from retro handheld classics, as well as the tone and story and themes coming from those Gothic horror classics.
Right, and there's other mechanics in here too, and you can see where inspiration's being drawn from, like Zelda 2. You've got the jump in there, and as well as, this is funny to me, a burrow mechanic, right? After 10 years of working on Shovel Knight, y'all just made another game about digging. So I didn't know if you knew that.
I swear it was an accident. It really was. The dirt thing is like, I don't know. Somehow it's like seeped into our subconscious, and just I don't know if we can make a game that doesn't involve dirt or digging in some way now.
I guess that's what the publishing arm of Yacht Club is for, right? Let everyone else do all the not dirt games.
The not dirt games,
right?
It's like, Kojima's making Strand games now, and you've got Souls games from so we're clearly, making the dirt genre as prolific as it can be.
So I know when you're kind of putting your time and efforts into making a pixel art or, a retro game that very much evokes that level of nostalgia. And honestly, I feel like I'm not going out on a limb here, but saying like Yacht Club is probably one of the best companies at doing this in terms of the games they make and the games they publish. Even if you can't play it on like an NES or an old console, it definitely looks like from that era. And I know like the colors in Mina, it looks like you've kind of got like a custom palette or something, but I was curious if you could talk to me a little bit about that specifically, about, the kind of limitations you put on yourself to make sure that this game has the Yacht Club magic and just really just whisk you back to games of old. How do you do that from a mechanical sense, I guess, or design sense even?
Yeah, so as far as the limitations go, much like when developing Shovel Knight, we really love to make games that make you feel that kind of fuzzy nostalgic feeling and fond memories of games you grew up with, but not actually, games that are not actually as janky or frustrating to play as they were back then, when like real hardware limitations kind of restricted things like, the ability to visually polish a game to like its maximum potential, or even gameplay accessibility, right? So on Shovel Knight, like you mentioned, we did use an actual NES palette. We did our best to adhere to color restrictions. So, 4 or 5 colors max per character or enemy sprite. Large sprites like bosses were placed over like swaths of background color that was just all black, because we didn't want to have the background competing with the amount of colors that might be in a larger sprite, which was something that you would see on the NES. The music itself was built directly in FamiTracker, which emulates that authentic chiptune sound.
Yes, yeah.
So I mean, we definitely go to great lengths to make it feel as nostalgic as it can. With Mina, we're taking a similar approach, and we're trying to evoke the feel of a Game Boy Color game without actually cutting ourselves off from making Mina the Hollower the coolest game it can be, right? So what that means is we did build a custom palette with colors picked right out of like some of our favorite Game Boy Color titles. So we're talking like Link's Awakening DX, the Oracle games, of course. Dragon Quest 3 and Dragon Quest Monsters were actually big inspirations as far as the colors that they use, which are a little more earthy and kind of grounded than a lot of the Zelda games, which are kind of like oversaturated and overblown, just really bright colors. We're taking pains still to follow like 4 color sprite restrictions. So Game Boy Color as well was only allowed to have 4 colors per sprite. So that means including black and transparency, which leaves you only like 2 colors, right?
Right.
So, and you got to get that like off-white kind of eggshell color into like most of your character sprites too. So it leaves you for like 1 color per character, which is always fun.
Do you find that makes it harder to make a game or easier? Do the limitations provide more of a guideline so that you don't like get too into the weeds on something, or do you feel like you're constantly butting up against it to try and make this cool idea you had work?
No, I think actually in an odd way, sometimes placing limitations like that, even artificial ones, is freeing, just because you're not spending as much time having to think about like picking from an unlimited palette of colors, right? You've only got 3 blues. So, if you already used the darker one in the background, you need to use the lighter one in this character so it like pops up the background, So things like that actually make it pretty freeing, and I enjoy the limitations we set. And it's fun too, because we set the limitations early on, so everybody's on the same page as to what those have to be. So keeping things consistent by following those rules has allowed us to just kind of make sure that the quality control on the visuals of the game is strong.
Right on. And I know the aspect ratio, right, when you talk about Game Boy Color. And I think I said Zelda 2 earlier, and I totally meant Link's Awakening, so I'm a fraud.
There's Zelda 2 influence in the game too, though, so don't worry, you did get that, yeah.
All right. But I was curious about the aspect ratio, because when you're trying to achieve, you set out to say like, okay, we're gonna make a Game Boy Color inspired game. So I'm still kind of curious about like what would keep this from being on a Game Boy Color, aside from maybe like the processing and like the speed at which you guys are doing things. But also I'm curious about that aspect ratio, because now it's wider. You have room to do like bigger sprites, right?
Yeah, no, true. As far as the aspect ratio, the game is built at widescreen rather than like, the square 10:9 aspect ratio of the actual original Game Boy. The Game Boy's charming. We love that resolution, but 99% of people are going to be playing this game at with a widescreen TV or monitor. So it's just not conducive.
So no pocket version is what you're telling. No, I just got a pre-order for Analog Pocket, man. What are you doing to me? Come on.
I mean, it would be amazing if it could run on there. I mean, maybe some, genius engineer out there is willing to take on the challenge, but I think it's just not practical for us. We'd really have to build the game, from the ground up specifically for that hardware. We're using modern tools to make the game, so just to make our lives easier all around. Yeah, it's just not feasible for it to run on an actual Game Boy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You obviously you want to appeal to as many people as possible. A lot of people playing on PC. I'm sure you guys have all the numbers. Switch obviously is going to be a big like Shovel Knight, came to Switch, and that was a big deal there too. But I guess it is a good time for handhelds, right? We've got Steam Deck on the way, again, Analog Pocket, and obviously Switch is going to do gangbusters this year. They just released their, their first direct of the year, and the lineup is like, it's all like their B team, but it's all like games that are going to sell millions of copies.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. Yep, there's a lot of exciting announcements.
Yeah. Sure. To that end, did you guys think about that kind of space going into building a game that is emulating older handhelds?
Kind of like I said, we always aim to have any game release that we do on as many platforms as possible. Mm-hmm. So even though the game's inspired by a lot of handheld classics, we're not necessarily aiming to only have it on handheld consoles like the Switch. I mean, our ultimate goal is to just have it in as many hands as possible. So that also means, as many places as possible.
And I guess more specifically, where did the spark come from that? Because you guys could have went the other way. You could have went from Shovel Knight, you could have jumped forward a generation, right? I guess you kind of did. But why the Game Boy Color, I guess?
Much like Shovel Knight was a love letter to the NES for us, Mina the Hollower is just a love letter to the Game Boy Color. We're huge fans of just those classic handheld consoles. Like, there's just kind of something intimate and more personal about like having something in your hands that's just that tiny and like peering into a little window of your own.
Yeah, it's got that real chunky kind of look to it, right? Of that era. And I think Zelda games already kind of were doing that and do that, like even with Link to the Past, but really comes through on Game Boy and Game Boy Color with those Oracle games and the Capcom titles that they did there. And it's a super fun look, and I'm super excited that this is the direction for the game. I do want to ask, like, maybe a little more wider. You guys announced this as a Kickstarter project, and the last Yacht Club Kickstarter project started off as like this small, retro game, Shovel Knight, 2013, like I said, I think, around that time. And there was a set of stretch goals that were kind of thrown in there, and I think it really has been now 10 years of working on Shovel Knight to kind of maybe, I guess, achieve those goals in a way that's felt good for both Yacht Club and for the audience to play, right? Like for example, there's like the stretch goal of like the boss battle, right? And where it seems like such an easy thing in concept to do, but then when you take off the nostalgia goggles of like, oh, that was fun in that one Mega Man game or whatever, and now you actually have to build it, and you're like, this isn't fun. Like, people don't want this, right? So now you have to spend time, and now it's like its own game essentially, right? Do you feel like there's a chance of that happening with Mina? I know I just rambled a lot, but I'm curious, like, why Kickstarter again? And is there a chance here that Mina is now become like another 10-year project? Like, are we gonna have a Mina the Hollower empire now?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and that's certainly a valid question, given how long we spent making good on the Kickstarter promises of Shovel Knight. And I mean, granted, we did make good on them. Like, we
won out.
Did what we said.
Yeah.
Right. We made, 5 full games over the course of like 8 years.
For sure.
Hopefully people trust kind of our legacy in using Kickstarter as just kind of a way to community build and to engage with our fans. But yeah, as far as Mina the Hollower goes, we're really trying not to overextend ourselves this time. So obviously we had a ton of fun expanding the adventure with Shovel Knight. But we kind of want to temper expectations for like entirely new games added as stretch goals or anything like that. I think this time we're trying to be a little more intentional about how future games are structured. Certainly, this won't be the only Mina game. Yacht Club has often said that we're like huge Nintendo fans. So in that way, want to emulate the way that Nintendo handles a lot of their IP. So in a sense, if Shovel Knight's like our Mario, then we kind of see Mina as our Zelda.
That's really cool.
We have big plans to take Mina's story independently into like cool and new places, and hopefully can see her on like as big a pedestal as Shovel Knight himself is on.
I think I personally just was surprised at the kind of length that and the kind of run y'all got out of Shovel Knight, but I also like, man, are they getting tired? It's so much Shovel Knight. And
it's been a lot of Shovel Knight.
Right. With that in mind, have you built, is Mina built in a way that allows you to kind of iterate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, we really loved working on Shovel Knight for so long, but it had been a long time. So we were ready to kind of dip our toes into something new. So with Mina the Hollower, it's a completely, clean slate. There's no ties to the Shovel Knight universe whatsoever. This is like a new world, new adventure, all new characters, new tone and themes. So yeah, I mean, we're setting the stage for us to be able to make Mina games indefinitely, just as we're currently able to make Shovel Knight games indefinitely, just because we have so much, we've expanded so much on the lore and kind of built a strong foundation to allow us to continue building. So these new games like Pocket Ninja and Dig, while they're technically side stories from the main campaigns, all their characters are considered canon, and we introduce new knights through these games that have become fan favorites already. So yes, in similar fashion with Mina the Hollower, we're hoping that her world and her adventure will be endearing to people and for years to come, I guess I would say.
Wow, that's ambitious, and I wish you guys a lot of luck in that endeavor. But I also have a lot of faith. I mean, Yacht Club is a studio, I think, that's proven itself time and time again with the things that you've made. So I really do wish you a lot of luck there, and I'm eager to play Mina the Hollower. But I think like the route recently of a lot of bigger indie games that have done the early access thing. And I see your studio as kind of the studio with a strong approach to your sensibilities and the design and what you want to do. And I think, and there's a lot of documentation about this, like even the folks at Supergiant talking about, sharing that collaborative process with fans. And I know like with a Kickstarter, that's kind of generally the expectation. What has kind of that experience been like for you all, and how do you think that's going to play into things with Mina?
Yeah, I mean, our decision to utilize Kickstarter again was just our way of returning to our roots. I mean, Kickstarter was such a huge part of Shovel Knight's success and building the strong community and loyal community of fans that we currently have. And so for us, it was really just wanting to engage on that platform again because it worked for us once, and so we're trying to make the most out of the resources we have available to us as a small team. We are still a small team, despite Shovel Knight's success. We've grown to about 20 people now, but we're also working on 2 internal games as well as all the publishing projects and co-developed projects that we have going on. So there's a lot happening, but we're trying to keep the studio small, and Kickstarter just allows us to kind of engage with the community in an easier kind of cohesive location, right? We had some backer rewards that allowed people to support the game while also becoming like a developer for a day, a designer for a day rather. And so, just fun things like that kind of keep us motivated. We were working on this game kind of in secret for like the better part of a year and a half, and not being able to talk about it at all or have anyone know what we were doing and just speculate that it's something Shovel Knight related was like certainly frustrating to say the least.
Sure.
We really wanted to get the word out and just share our excitement about Mina. So yeah, now that it's finally out, and so far people have been very, very receptive to her and everything that we've talked about the game so far was just overwhelming and exciting and a relief.
Right on. All right, I only have 2 more questions for you.
Sure.
I kind of want to know, since Mina is such a love letter to a handheld era. What are your top 3 handheld games that you think about or think about playing or think about returning to all the time?
It's gonna sound like I'm just harping on the same things as we've been talking about, but Link's Awakening DX is just like a classic. That was one of my favorites growing up. It's a game that I've played countless amount of times. So that was obviously a huge inspiration. And Dragon Quest 3 on Game Boy Color is like one of my favorite RPGs of all time.
There you go.
I remember, it's an amazing game, but just having that in like portable form, just like such a long immersive adventure was just really enjoyable as a kid. And same with Dragon Quest Monsters, which was actually like a toss-up for me as to which I preferred, Pokemon or Dragon Quest Monsters.
Wow.
At one point. So yeah, I mean, it's a great game.
Well, I expected someone at Yacht Club to have some pretty decent deep cuts when it came to the handheld era. So you get some points.
One more that I could add is Dark Arms Beastbuster, which is kind
go.
of like an obscure one, but that was kind of a formative one for us when we were coming up with mechanics for Mina the Hollower. So if anyone hasn't played that, that's definitely one I would highly recommend. It's a very cool game.
Wow, that's a great suggestion. I haven't heard of that myself, so now I'm gonna be like on Google for a while.
Gotta go play it. Yeah.
All right, last question. Do you have anything you want to say to our audience or maybe to your audience as you head into the final months of production on Mina?
Yeah, we're still fairly early in development, so I don't want to say that we're close to completion.
I try to get you.
Not. Yeah, good one. Deflect.
Yeah.
The trailer probably makes the game look further along in development than it actually is. I think there's a bit of smoke and mirrors going on there where we tried to show as much content as we possibly could. So we kind of took things from like every corner of our assets folder and crammed them into making the trailer look cool. But yeah, I mean, as far as just speaking to the fans, we can't thank you enough for your support so far, both for to Yacht Club as a company and about Mina the Hollower. Your enthusiasm just means everything, and your support so far with the Kickstarter means everything, and really does a lot to keep us motivated. Because like I said, we were working in a bubble, kind of in isolation for so long, both a mix of just not being able to talk about the game yet, and also because of the pandemic recently, it's just made development a little slower, a little more difficult, and being able to share this new project with the world has really revitalized us and kind of lit that spark all over again.
All right on, man. Well, thank you so much for coming by to talk with us. It's always fun to talk about games, but specifically games that we're pretty excited about, and you've got our confidence here. So
Thanks,
hopefully
Evan.
when the game gets closer to launch, you got a new trailer or something you want to come back on, anytime. Doors open.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. Just hit me up. Appreciate it, Evan.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks for everyone at home who tuned in, and hopefully we'll catch you in the next video right here at Inside Gaming.